Ladies and gentlemen, as stated by our chairman, John Pace, this is the most difficult lecture of this series. So therefore, I had to select an appropriate location where to deliver this lecture. Let me state very bluntly that to deliver a lecture on the limitation of Einstein general relativity in any qualified academic institution in the United States of America or most of Europe is totally outside reality, as it will be documented in progressively throughout this lecture. So I had to select a receptive environment. Among a number of very receptive countries, such as Greece, that is very open to basic knowledge, I selected Egypt because of my attachment and my love of Egyptian ancient civilization. You may have seen the view of the Luxor temple in the introductory part. However, look at the date. This is January 29. We initiated the lecture jointly with the initiation of the Egyptian Revolution. And indeed, the Luxor temple was empty, as you may have seen, while in reality it's full of thousands and thousands of tourists. The reason it was empty because there were military tanks patrolling the streets nearby. To make a long story short, we were evacuated by the Belgian government because our flight originated from Brussels. We were treated by the Belgian government with white gloves and 5-star hotels and things like that. I want to say thanks to the Belgian government. It was really a privilege to be part of their action. But as a result of all this, the lecture had to be restarted and we had to redo completely in the United States of America, and in particular in Florida. Well, let me begin by stating the obvious. Albert Einstein has entered in the history of science for many reasons. An additional reason is that he has been the first to initiate a geometric study of gravitation. Additionally, he selected a geometry, the Riemannian geometry, which is simply fascinating, and this has a mathematical beauty that is undeniable, as proven by the fact that Einstein general relativity and gravitation have attracted a large number of pure mathematicians, applied mathematicians, and theoretical physicists, including myself. And this has been going on for close to a century, 96 years to be exact. After having said so, I have to make a blunt statement. After studying for 50 years the consistency and the various aspects of general relativity and in general, and Einstein's conception of gravitation in particular, my conclusion is that those theories are fundamentally flawed, and they have an unresolvable basic inconsistency, insufficiency, and shortcomings. I've tried for years to resolve the problems that we will be addressing during this lecture and fail. You reach a point in which we have, as a scientist, we have to admit the truth to the best of our knowledge. Okay, at that point, as it is also known, I have been dubbed with all sorts of names what I'm about to say is fringe science and so on. There was also an editor when I published papers of appraising the limitations of Einstein general relativity. There was an editor, I have never heard this name, who felt compelled to send long email all over the academic world, claiming Santilli is a nuclear physicist. Of course, I've written a number of papers in nuclear physics, but I'm an applied mathematician. And then the theorems that you will see in a moment, in a few moments, the theorems were disproved by a tangential epistemological and philosophical aspect. So let me make another blunt statement to people such as these unmentionable editors. I have been, for several years, a member of the Department of Mathematics of Harvard University under several grants from the Department of Energy. Therefore, I am fully qualified to express a judgment on the Riemannian geometry as well as on general relativity and Einstein conception of gravitation. Needless to say, I'm not expecting you to agree. This is not the issue. It's a question that I am sufficiently qualified, so therefore my objection, published in an independent, severely refereed journal, should be considered if we don't want to pass the boundary from science into politics. Very well. Let's begin with an analysis of the most fundamental insufficiency. Those are not inconsistencies, insufficiency and of Einstein general relativity. The first one is that after 1 century of attempt and the river of public money, it has been impossible to identify a quantum version of gravitation. We now know the technical reason for, because the Riemannian geometry is necessarily non-canonical in structure, since it is a deformation of the Minkowski geometry. So therefore, any operator image of Einstein gravitation must necessarily be non-unitary. The non-unitary quantum theories are known to be catastrophically inconsistent when formulated with the mathematics of unitary theory, Hilbert spaces, etc. This catastrophic inconsistency are studied in details in lecture 2A, 2B, 3C, etc. So there's no point in reviewing them here. Nevertheless, this has been a major loss to science, namely the absence of at least an operator form of gravity. It is a major insufficiency that has to be kept in mind by physicists and observer in good faith. The next insufficiency is that also after close to a century of attempts, in reality were initiated by Albert Einstein himself, general relativity has prohibited any consistent grand unification of electroweak and gravitational interactions. We know nowadays that by following the historical conception of gravitation by Einstein, there is no hope whatsoever of achieving a consistent grand unification for many, many reasons. Just to flash a couple, the electroweak interactions are a magnificent theory verifying a symmetry, a universal symmetry, the Poincare symmetry. Gravitation has no symmetry, has a covariance. The moment you match a covariant theory with Poincare invariant theory, ladies and gentlemen, you have an horrendous minestrone that the outcome can only be catastrophically inconsistent. Also, the mixing of a theory formulated on a curved space, which is non-unitary, matched with the theory which is beautifully formulated on Minkowski space, you end up with another minestrone which has no realistic chances of success. The reason, technical reason for the failure actually is an impossibility of achieving a consistent, there are all sorts of political grand unified theory, but one that really can resist the test of time. It's impossible, and we know many, many technical reasons. Additional reason for fundamental limitation of Einstein gravitation is the complete absence of even a possibility of formulating the gravitational field of antimatter. The reason is known, but not spoken in the best PhD courses, whether in Cambridge, USA, or in Cambridge, England. And the reason that the only conjugation in Einstein gravitation is that for the charge. But bodies, astrophysical bodies have to be assumed generally to be chargeless, to be neutral. Assuming they have a little charge, the contribution of a little charge to the gravitational fields of a massive star and antimatter star is zero, virtually zero. So therefore, it is an intrinsic insufficiency of the theory. Those problems have been addressed. I spent many decades of my life to try to attempt the resolution of those processes, of those insufficiency. I did achieve a preliminary solution, but I had to depart from Einstein gravitation. This is presented in this monograph, which has been published by Springer, one of the best publishers, scientific publisher these days, and because I'm on the continuous accusation by equivocal scientists in gravitation. Santilli published his idea in a journal in which he is the editor-in-chief. This is not the case. That's more, before accepting this monograph, Spinger study submitted to referee in 3 continents, and it was accepted with no modification. The study of this monograph, which is available as a free PDF download because no longer available in the original printed form, I believe is necessary for an understanding of the rest of this lecture.